Hello, welcome to Staring Down the Storm, Autism Advocacy in America. I'm your host, Tabitha Ziegler. Okay, all right, welcome back to the show, everybody. I have a very interesting guest today. I'm going to let her introduce herself for you. So here you go, Sierra. Tell everybody a little bit about yourself and your origin story.
Okay, my name is Sierra Martin, and I am a student at IU full-time because I'm a crazy person with 2 kids who thought it would be fun to go back to school full-time.
Okay.
And a mom and someone who is just fucking tired. I'm sorry. I'm going to cuss.
No, you can totally drop the F-bomb if you think it's appropriate.
Okay, I'm so sorry. I'm just so freaking tired. Yeah. I think that's my origin story. I'm just a tired mom who had it. And one day in my kitchen in Clayton, Indiana, I was just like, forget this. I'm going back to school. I'm tired of the way that things are being ran. I think it's into the ground, and someone's got to do something about it. And I guess I just thought I didn't have enough knowledge to just go right into it. So I guess I went back to school, and yeah. And now 6 years later, this is where I...
Well, let's tell everybody a little bit about what you're studying, though, because I find that fascinating.
I am a political science major with a minor in legal studies, civic engagement and social justice, and then Arabic studies and Islamic studies.
Interesting. So let's talk a little bit about the background on that, because you've got a very interesting family story as well. What led you down the path of being interested in Islamic studies?
I was honestly interested because I know that my family is Syrian, and so I wanted to know more about that. And it's not something that I can easily talk to my own grandma who is Syrian about.
Okay.
And we're not very close with the family in Michigan.
Okay.
So there wasn't an outlet for me to find out more about my Syrian roots. So I started just doing Google searches and stuff, and then I found this book, Arab Indianapolis, and I found out that Professor Curtis worked at the university when I decided to take one of his classes, and I just was like, oh my gosh, okay, I am so interested in this. And then I started taking more of his classes that were like history of like Middle Eastern civilizations. Religion and racism was a fantastic class. He teaches so many good classes, and he reached out to me and was like, would you be interested in being an Arabic and Islamic studies minor, because you're pretty much there anyway. And I was just like, you know what, yes, because yeah, I mean, I wanted to know more about my own history, and that's just not something that was not only not spoken about in my family, but Arabs in Indianapolis have a rich history. We've always been here, and we have set up so many roots. Now, when you say
always, how long is always? Because you're talking to someone that their family's been here since it was Indian territory. So I'm curious, how long have Arabs been in Indiana?
Arabs and Muslims have actually been in America since before America was founded.
Interesting. Well, let's tell everybody a little bit about the backstory of that, because I don't think most people know that.
So Muslims have been here since the founding, since the first African Americans were brought here, because, you know, in Africa, Islam is actually a huge religion. So a lot of enslaved people actually spoke Arabic or some form of Arabic, and so they actually brought their religion over here. And I forget who it is, but in the desert, there is a famous Muslim Levantine man they have a statue to him because he is one of the first that moved out west. And I am botching his story, and I feel terrible.
That's okay. We can put it in the show notes.
There is a fantastic Muslims in America on PBS, a fantastic documentary, and Arab Indianapolis is also a fantastic documentary on PBS.
Okay.
But yes, Arabs have been here for a very long time. We actually have the Little Syria colony in Terre Haute, Indiana.
Really?
Yes. And that is where Helen Corey is from. And she is one of my favorite Syrian Americans. It's more recent history for her, but she kind of started making the history of Arabs in Indiana more known with her. She ran for elected office. She was the county recorder back when they had to actually sit in the court and write all the things down, right? She was responsible for that, the first Arab that was elected to any office in Indiana. And then she wrote The Art of Syrian Cookery, a cookbook that was like a love letter to the Levant. And so I love learning about history, but I love learning about Arab history, especially in Indianapolis. And then to learn that my grandpa was like a part of that history as a bar owner for 30 years.
Yeah, let's talk about him a little bit because that's also really interesting.
Yeah, he owned a bar.
What was his name?
His name was Jim, or Jerome, but we called him Jim, Shami. And Shami in Arabic is actually, it means man of Damascus. So like when they would come over to they came to Ellis Island. A lot of times their last names are things that couldn't be pronounced by the people taking the names. So they were just like, where are you from? Syria? Okay, Shami. Your last name is Shami, which makes it really hard when you're doing genealogy, trying to pick people, because there's like different variations of the last name spellings and things, and everybody from the Levant almost has the last name Shami, because they're like, yeah, you're a man of Damascus, right? Yeah, you're Arab. Okay, Shami, your last name is Shami. So I've had to like sift through a lot of things based off of stories that he has passed down. So that made it very interesting. But they are from Michigan. They came into ports of entry in New York and New Jersey, and then migrated to Dearborn, Michigan to work at the Ford plant. Because at the time, Henry Ford, huge anti-Semite, he was paying $5 for a factory worker, which was huge at the time. Like that is just not money that you were going to make anywhere else, especially as an immigrant, nobody from nowhere. So they went to go work at the Ford factory. My grandpa worked at the Ford factory for a little bit. And then he was just like, all right, well, this isn't my thing. I'm a first gen American now. So like, I'm going to go do my own thing. Okay. He started getting into trouble. He got into a gambling ring. He ended up stealing a car, committing a felony, and then he made it out here to Indiana, where he decided to open a bar with his sister Ruth. Okay. And that was over on Virginia Avenue, which is now, I think, a parking garage. Okay. And that's where the Pink Elephant piano bar used to be. And that was his first bar. There's actually a picture in the Indy Star of my grandma and him outside of the piano bar when she was little. That's cute. Yeah, and then he had a horrible gambling problem, so it was hard for him to like keep a steady bar open. Then he started moving around. The Mousetrap up on Keystone is also one of his bars that still exists, and I've actually talked to the owners recently. Oh, really? In the last like 5 years, to ask, like, do you know who you bought this from? Like, my grandpa opened this bar, and they were just kind of staring at me like, I don't think so. I bought it from other dude. That's not a name I'm familiar with. And I'm like, okay, well, other dude probably bought it from Jim Shami, but that's who opened this bar. And he's just like, I don't know. I was just like, okay, well, I guess through family, just letting you know. I'm just letting you know through family stories. I have pictures of my grandma and my great grandma sitting at bar tables in here, filling salt shakers. So not crazy. And he was just like, okay, I didn't know this history. And I just thought, you bought the building and you don't know the history. How many people in Indiana don't know the history of Arabs here? A lot. We're all over, especially like when Trump was doing the Muslim ban. People were like, well, you guys aren't from here. And it's just like, yes, we literally are. We literally are from here. We've always been here. And we've always been a part of your community, whether you knew it or not. Whether you remember that on the Monument Circle, where the Symphony Hall sits right now, actually used to be an Oriental rug shop owned by Nicholas Shaheen and his wife, and they are Syrian immigrants who made it they did so well. They made a store on Monument Circle. And obviously now that history has been covered up, but there is a rich history of Arabs in Indianapolis, and I just really loved learning about it. I loved connecting to it, and so I think Professor Curtis kind of saw that in me and was just like, I think you'd be great for this minor. I think you should do it. And then I got really into it, excited. I'm about to graduate, and I got an email from him saying that this minor will be discontinued after the first year. So
are you going to be able to at least salvage that for your graduation? Yes. Well, that's good at least.
Yes, I was able to do some scheduling magic to make that happen. Okay. But yeah. It's unfortunate for people coming under me that they won't be able to benefit from that program or even learn Arabic. Like there were some people who were in the middle of learning Arabic. That wasn't my path choice because I have so much going on. I didn't feel that I had time necessarily to dedicate. And I took a couple of French classes, which French is way easier to learn because it's so similar to English. You know what I mean? Like, in the way that like Spanish is just easier for my brain to get. Arabic is so hard. It is so hard, and especially when you don't have a native speaker teaching you. And sometimes my grandma and I will still go back and forth. I'm like, I wish that you had learned Arabic. Why did you not? And she's like, because I don't want to be called a dirty Arab. I'm like, okay, but your dad knew how to speak it fluently, correct? And she's like, well, of course. I'm like, okay, so we could have been bilingual this whole time, and you didn't pass that on? And she's like, no, because I wanted to be American as apple pie, so no, I dropped that. Like,
well, that's very common, actually, because I don't know if I told you, but I was also a language major at Indiana State, so I was a French major. I did French, so technically my degree's in languages, literatures, and linguistics with a focus on French and translation.
Nice.
And I've got, geez, man, it's been a long time ago because I'm way older than you. But I've got teaching English as a second language certification as well. And so I was in a lot of classes with a lot of people. I mean, Root Hall was like language city, language arts city. So, yeah, I'm really not loving what I'm hearing coming out of IU whenever it comes to the language programs. I don't think that benefits anybody at all. But especially, you know, language is hard, and that's how people communicate. And I think it makes you a better human being if you can understand someone through their language and their culture. So yeah, I'm not thrilled to hear that they're just dropping that minor. And I don't know if you said this already, maybe we had said this off camera, but what are they suggesting to these students that they do?
Professor Curtis, bless his heart, he said anyone still doing the on track for Arabic needs to try to go to Jordan, the country, to continue to learn Arabic, because that is, I don't know if that was the closest option, the best option, but pretty much he was like, IU will not be teaching Arabic anymore in the future. So you will need to seek that somewhere else. And it was devastating. And then I think a few days later, I found out that they actually are stopping teaching foreign languages except for English. And I just thought, oh, because like you said, there are actual studies to show that people who are openness to experience, and in that category is learning new languages or having new experiences. People who are more open to learning new languages do have a higher cognitive ability. They also are more politically engaged. They are also more politically informed. They have a stronger sense of civic duty. They're more likely to engage in protests. Whereas if you are someone who is not very open to new experiences, not very open to learning new languages, you are less likely to do any of those things. And so it makes me think, is that IU's calculation, is that they are just going to dumb us down and they are going to produce people who are less open to experience, less open to new ideas, less accepting that they want us to actually regress? Maybe that's a lot of forethought on Pamela Whitten's, she probably doesn't think that far ahead, but it does just make me wonder, because again, the correlation is there between people who are open to experiences and being more civically engaged and cognitively higher cognitive functions.
Well, I mean, there's clearly something going on at IU, because even where I'm from, driving on 74 towards Indianapolis, there's this big billboard that used to show, I might be getting it wrong, it was either 2 or 3 people. There used to be an African-American woman and a man, and maybe a third, but definitely 2. And it was advertising the business school. And I was like, I always thought, hey, that's really great, because then they're showing some diversity, which I think is great. It's a great representation of Hoosiers, right? Because we're not all white, and we never have been.
Right.
But now it's just a white dude with like just brick building behind him, and I'm like, wow, that messaging is strong. It's super strong,
and I want to say that's an
it.
anomaly, and you're just seeing things that aren't there. But nope, I think that's true. I think that was a choice that they were making,
intentional.
Along with after the pro-Palestine encampments happened on Bloomington and IU and Indianapolis campus, they decided to take down Democracy Plaza And I don't think that many people noticed or are talking. It's something I keep beating the drum about. Not enough. I don't think enough people are saying anything about it. But in the campus center, there used to be right next to the escalators, there would be a dry erase board. And people would put, things like Free Palestine or From Gaza with Love, or how many, people had been murdered that day, or how many bombs had dropped, or how much money we had spent. Just trying to give you the facts so that you understood. We might be in the fog of war, but wrong is wrong.
Sure.
And what's happening is fucking wrong.
Yeah.
And we have a very large group of Muslims, Arabs, Palestinians. We have an entire Middle Eastern Student Alliance because of it. And so, we just wanted to be able to express our opinions and say things on this democracy board. It's just a dry erase board. And yet people felt that that was anti-Semitic, and so they got rid of this board and never spoke about it. They didn't say anything. It was just after the semester had ended, they just put up some new banner or something, and we're like, oh, gee whiz, was that something before? At first, they had just taken our dry erase markers. The first step was they had taken the markers. But people are like, yeah, there's no such thing as a Walmart. I'm just going to go buy a marker and just write. And they were like, okay, so we can't take away the markers. We'll take away the board.
Okay.
And I just thought, like the billboard, that is a choice you're making. That is, you're saying to the students, I don't care about what you have to say.
Subliminal messaging.
Right. I don't want to hear what you have to say.
If you just erase these people, then people will forget that they existed.
Yes.
And I not just for the Muslims, right, but I thought it was extremely profound that there was a black female, African-American female, that was on a billboard that I thought, hey, props to IU, great, like coming along with the times, and that they rescind that and then replace it with one solitary white dude. I was like, wow, the messaging there is just in your face. And I thought how disrespectful to the African American community, which there is a huge one, especially in Indianapolis. I mean, I can't imagine that community is also not feeling that.
They also took down our Black Lives Matter banner at the Indianapolis campus. There used to be a Black Lives Matter on the gerbil tunnel. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I know which one it was.
Okay, I was going to say, I don't know what to call it other than a gerbil tube.
No, I remember seeing it.
Yes,
and I remember it being gone.
Yes. Yeah, because Pamela Whitten is making choices. Just like we will cancel, I think the Bloomington, they were talking about a Hollaby is who they said it was. I think it was an art presentation. I'm not a Bloomington person, so I don't really know super well, but they canceled something, an event that had been planned for several months. Back in, I think, 2023, 2024, after October 7th, there was a Palestinian artist that was supposed to have an exhibition at the IU campus in Indianapolis. We canceled her. Absolutely. So fast forward to today.
Did they give her any explanation, or did they give...
Of course not.
Like, did they provide any explanation for the students that were interested in coming?
No.
Just nothing, just she's not coming.
The chatter that went around is that it was anti-Semitic. No one, I don't know if that's what actually was said by the higher-ups. But it was a choice to cancel a Palestinian artist coming to IU in the midst of all that's going on, when you have such an outspoken student group saying, hey, what's happening is wrong. Maybe we shouldn't, our tuition shouldn't pay for some of this, because we at IU have contracts with Israel and with the Israeli government. So, as do most universities, which is why so many college students were on campus with encampments saying, hey man, my tax dollars not only pay for this when I go to work or whatnot, but also my tuition dollars pay for this.
Now, I will stop you right there, though, because I don't think the vast majority of Americans are aware of that. I certainly wasn't. Now, this is coming from someone that was a flight attendant for 17 years, that made multiple trips to Israel. Like, I flew the Newark to Tel Aviv flight multiple times. Like, I can't tell you how many Hasidic Jewish people that I have served, that I have accommodated with, per United Airlines instruction, right? We had special accommodations that would allow them to pray in the galley, at the sides of the galley. We weren't giving that privilege to any other religious group that I'm aware of. Maybe there is, and I'm just not aware of it. I can't tell you how many like little snotty noses I've wiped, and bassinets that I've set up and made special room in the overheads for special hat boxes and all this sort of thing. Also spent, I can't tell you how many times I've been to Israel, and I loved it. I loved it. I thought it was beautiful. Like I was a language major. I majored in French. I've been to France multiple times. I studied there twice. You know, the boulevards in Tel Aviv. I was like, wow, this is like southern France. Loved the food, loved the culture. I found everybody to be like very hospitable, very nice. I've got several friends of mine that are either Jewish and Israeli, or married an Israeli and then moved to Israel, had their kids there. Hell, my freaking baby daddy donor, like of the information that you see online, right?
Right.
Part of his history was his mother was Ashkenazi Jewish, is what was listed. I didn't care because I picked him because he was kind. And on the paperwork it said that he had started his own branch of the Special Olympics. Now, hindsight being 2020, which we never know these things, right? Flash forward. Now I have 3 little kids that have autism. Now I know myself that I have autism. And, you know, their baby daddy, however you want to put it, is of Jewish descent. And so, like, pooling all these things together, I have an expressed interest in what's going on because my children do, and they're going to ask me about things. And, you know, I'm like you. I'm a history buff. I like to know things. I think it's our duty as citizens of a nation, any nation, to know things. If someone gives you, like, if they provide you more information that sparks critical thinking and then maybe takes you down a rabbit hole, that's probably a good thing. That's probably the universe telling you, hey, you know, like, pay attention to this. I say all that to say, I never saw, like, anything about Palestine, right? Like,
Purposefully.
I was not aware, like, being in Tel Aviv, right? Now,
Yes.
I probably could have taken it upon myself, right? In fairness.
You would have had to go really outside of your way. Once you land in Tel Aviv, you don't know that you are entering an apartheid police state, but you are. They know what you're doing. They know where you are. They know where you're going. They know how to create an experience for you so that you're not thinking about what's over that wall. What's going on over there?
Well,
there's nothing over
to
there.
be completely technical with you, right? Like, obviously, I understood to some degree that there was a conflict, right? I'm sure I had heard things because I traveled frequently to Europe and to other places. I had friends of mine that were not only Jewish, but were Muslim. Like, I would not be your typical Hoosier that may not have that type of exposure. But even someone like me, I had no idea. And so, initially, when October 7th happened, I messaged one of my friends that still lives in Israel. And I was like, hey, are you guys okay? Do you need a place to stay? Because I knew they had young children.
Right.
And so I was like, look, if you need to, leave, come here. I did that because he's a friend of mine. And I would have done it for anybody. Because in my mind, I was like, oh my God, there's conflict happening. I know people there, literally on the ground. He wasn't the only one. I know another friend of mine that I think he probably is also still a Hebrew speaker. But him and his entire family were essentially evacuated and brought back to the U.S. But I'm just saying, from the American perspective of what I was getting, I don't think I really knew enough. I didn't know enough of the background. I didn't know enough of the history. And then little by little, I started to ask. So I put a post out on my Facebook to my Jewish and Israeli friends, and I was like, listen, I need more information. I want to understand this. Like, I clearly know I don't know enough about this. And then people were sending me things. They were sending me books. They were sending me podcasts. And I was reading and I was listening. And then it took me down this rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And that rabbit hole that I went down, which I let develop over time, I was not one of those people that initially was like, Israel bad, like Palestine bad, Israel good. I was not like that. I was like, okay, I know there's a long history. There's a lot of stuff going on. I don't want to misspeak because I know people. Like, I care about people.
Right.
That, like, hell, I've got family members that are Jordanian. I've got a good mix. Like, I have family members that are from Kuwait. I didn't want to misstep and say the wrong thing and not understand because I know better.
Right.
But as I watched things develop, I was like, you know what? Because there's a portion of my family that supposedly are Indigenous. I know there's a ton of Americans that are told that, right? So, like,
Right.
we can never know 100%. That's just something that I was told. But because I was told that, because I had an interest in it, I studied it a lot. And I even took, I think it was one of the only classes that Indiana State offered at the time was a Native American lit class. And through that class, I learned a lot more. Probably much like, your undergrad.
Isn't it fun how that happens? You're
Yeah.
like, no, I'm really interested in this. You have a class for it? I think I'm going to take that.
Yeah,
Just pull
but-
this thread a little.
So I think that people, if there's an interest, especially if there's like some line, some connection from your family or supposed connection from your family that has sparked interest in some fashion, you're like drawn like a moth to a flame. So all of the kids that ended up taking that Native American lit class, I think every single one of them that was in there was either of Indigenous heritage or had been told that or was interested or was married to someone. Like, it was very clear that the interest was familial.
I think that's how it was in my Arab studies class. Isn't
Yeah.
it interesting how that happens?
I say that to say, and I'm certainly not an expert, but I think that all of the things that I've studied up to now, what I see from all of that to present is a high correlation between what the American government did to the Indigenous communities. So just to boil it down to the most simple that I can put it, and like I said, this is just one person's opinion, I'm like, wow. It's like the Israelis kind of feel like we're whiter than you and we want your land, so we're just going to take it. And that's basically, from my research, essentially in America. That's basically what it was. It was like, right, we're whiter than you and we want what you have because it's valuable and we're going to kill you for it and we're going to take it. And I know it's a very, very basic like connection,
No, yeah.
but that to me is clear as day.
Yes.
Is like, I can't understand how people can't figure that out. And I've seen so many videos of these children, right? Like, it just disgusts me. Like, I wasn't raised like that. I was raised to see everybody as people. Everybody has something to teach you. Hell, when you go back through our, like, old photos that are in the family trunks and stuff, because my family's been here for a long time, you can clearly see there are some people in there that are not white.
Yes.
They are not. Like, there is not.
And even if they are considered white today, they may not have been considered white then.
Well-
because that trips up my dad sometimes. He's like, well, the Irish were white. And I'm like, no, the Irish weren't white. That's why it said Irish need not apply, because they weren't white until somebody decided that was convenient to bring them into the fold because we're being outnumbered, so now we need more white people. So let's expand the definition of white. And that, to my dad, just blew his mind. He was like, what are you saying to me? I'm like, history.
I know, but this is why history is important, right? And there's just a clear correlation throughout the world.
Yes.
It is undeniable.
Yes.
Any indigenous culture that has ever been invaded by white people, right? Like, of any persuasion.
And the Israelis knew this at the time.
Of course.
So they did
whole
actually
world knew.
they did look to the United States. They saw what they did, how we did our genocide, right? They saw how we dealt with
so did the
our
Nazis.
native population. Yes, they did.
Of course they did.
So
I mean, eugenics, the Indiana
Yes.
law for eugenics was from 1907. And
Yes.
Indiana couldn't run fast enough to be the first state. Much like right now, how they just put a bill out that they're like, hey, let's do some gas chambers. And Indiana was like, sign me up, coach. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, can't you people see what's happening here?
yes. So back in like the late 1800s, this gentleman, I forget his first name, it's Russian, but his last name is Jabotinsky or Jabotinsky. I'm not good with Russian.
All right.
But he ends up writing what about Zionism, pretty much trying to pull together the factions because he's a revolutionary Zionist. So he believes in unassailed military force. You have to put out an iron wall of military force. And what he writes in his the Iron Wall document that he wrote, trying to again get the labor Zionists on board because they are like the Democrats, if you will, here in America, where they're just kind of like, can't we all get along? Like, yes, our end goal is to have a state, but like, can't we all just get along? And Jabotinsky comes in and is like, look, guys, colonization, it's brutal. Indigenous people are not going to accept us taking their land in exchange for a good rail system, is literally what he said. We're never going to get the Arabs to agree. We don't need their agreement. What we need is just brute military force. So much so that we beat the Arabs and the Palestinians down so much and give them no hope. If they don't have hope, this is over, and we can take the land, we can make a state, this is ours now. But as long as there is hope within those Palestinians, there will always be resistance. And so that's why Palestinians say that, like when they outlawed the flag, they said you can't have the Palestinian flag. Well, they were like, fine, we'll take up the watermelon. That's our symbol now, because it has all of the pan-Arab colors. So we are the watermelon people. And so they're
I didn't know that. I'm a little behind.
So Zionism is a political project needed, and it doesn't have a religion. You can be a Christian Zionist, and there are so many in America. Because when you say, I am an anti-Zionist, I'm not anti-Semitic. I love our Jewish brothers and sisters, and I do not think that, Yaqub in New York getting a bagel right now has anything to do with this. He's not getting a phone call from Netanyahu and being like, hey, fuck the Arabs. I don't think that. I don't think they have anything to do with this. It is entirely the government, the Netanyahu government specifically, the Likud party, which is actually a descendant of Jabotinsky's revolutionary Zionist party. And Zionism is actually just it is a political entity trying to deal with Europe's Jewish question. The reason they need a state, and they chose Israel, they say, because it is as a people for a land without a people. First of all, this is not true. Obviously, there are natives. Even Jabotinsky acknowledges this in saying we need to have a Jewish state. He acknowledges that there are Palestinians. Then you have the father of Zionism, Theodor Herzl, who doesn't acknowledge Palestinians' existence. He doesn't say they're not there, but he just never mentions them. And so it kind of perpetuates this land without a people for a people without a land, because the Arabs look different than all of the Europeans do. We don't have the same kind of agricultural system. So like Palestinian farmers, they live on the olive groves and on the lemon groves, but not the same way. The house is like up the hill, away. So sometimes, when it's not harvest season, you're going to see nobody there. You're not going to see anybody hanging out in the olive grove. It's not harvest time. There's nothing happening. And so sometimes when visitors would come, I think Mark Twain even came on a visit and wrote about how this is such a desolate land. There are no Arabs, and if there are, few and far between. They're Bedouins who don't care about anything. They're just flit about and don't care. And that is so antithetical to Palestine's history. It is such an important port on the way to the Silk Road. It actually, because of where it's uniquely located, it helps connect through the gate of Damascus into the Silk Road for all the people to the west. So for them to come in and be like, this is just a desolate land, it means nothing, like, that's just not true. And a lot of what we're seeing now with Netanyahu's government comes from Jabotinsky's view of the Palestinians and how you deal with an indigenous population. But to your point about the Native Americans, they pretty much did. They looked around and were like, well, we have a divine right to this land. God promised us this land. The thing that most people don't know, they also decided maybe Argentina or Uganda. For a minute, they were looking at a Jewish state in Argentina or Uganda, which really kind of puts a hole in your thing about, well, it had to be Palestine because it's a holy land.
Well, the Nazis also went to Argentina, so that might have been a little bit of a conflict of interest.
So the Jewish state has to happen in 1948 because they have to. Zionism is an answer to the Jewish question in Europe. I think that without the virulent anti-Semitism of Europe, all the pogroms that they had to deal with in Russia, horrible. France is not very nice. It is not a nice time for Jewish people in Europe, minus the ones who are under the Ottoman rule. They actually have a different fate. They aren't necessarily on the same level as Muslims. Christians and Jews are not on the same level as Muslims under the Ottoman rule. However, they also are not seen as a scourge. They are just, you just pay a tax. That's it. And then practice your religion. I don't care. You can't do it in public. You can't have a synagogue. You can't have, there are some, and I understand how that today we look at that and go, well, that's oppression. Yes. Remember that in medieval Europe, they're doing the Crusades.
Right.
So, like, I don't know. If it were me, I would rather be in a place where people don't look at me like I am a scourge on the earth and just tell me to pay a tax and you're fine. You're essentially an Ottoman. It's fine. But Europe has virulent anti-Semitism. And so they decide that there is no way that the Jewish population can ever coexist with our people. You can't be a Jewish Frenchman. You have to be a Jew or a Frenchman. And that was an interesting and strange place. I think that is anti-Semitic for Zionists, Jewish Zionists, to try to convince their Jewish brothers and sisters, you'll never be an American. You'll never be an American Jew. So you need to be an Israeli Jew. We need to go actually find a homeland somewhere, because these people will never stop doing pogroms. They will never stop doing the Shoah or the Holocaust. So World War II happens and they're right. They're proven right. Horrible. And afterwards, Europe doesn't want these populations back. We free them from the camps, which a whole other thing, because most soldiers didn't know that that's what they were doing. They probably, and in fact, there's a great documentary on PBS about it, where American soldiers, most of them did not know that was the mission. They thought that they were fighting Hitler and fascism. They didn't know that they were liberating the Jewish people. And in fact, our president was like, I can't really tell them that, because it might suppress morale. Why am I fighting? To save a Jewish man? So there is serious anti-Semitism going on at this time. Definitely something to be worried about. But Palestine has been taking on refugees, opening their arms and saying, come here. We have Palestinian Jews here. We have Christians. We have all kinds of things going on. We have Druze. I don't think most people in America know there is an entire religious sect called the Druze.
Okay, explain about that, because I don't know
very much, because there isn't very much literature on them.
I mean, any bit, because that's the first time that I've heard the word.
I don't know much about them other than there is an entire separate religion, Druze.
Okay.
And
well, we'll see what we can find.
I was going to say, there are so many religions in that area, because it's kind of the birthplace of religion. So, so it is a beautiful melting pot of religions and things going on. And so the Palestinians are like, well, you can come here. It's fine. Come here. We'll keep you safe, whatever, and take on refugees. This thing where it starts to become a problem is when they start to say that they want a Jewish state. And Palestinians are like, but there's an Arab majority here. And they're like, yeah, we know. That's a problem. So in solving the Jewish question for Europe, we created an Arab question in their own homeland. Because the Europeans were like, the Holocaust is bad. We got to fix this. We got to do something for the Jewish people. They have suffered, and they have. Instead of taking back your people from Poland, from Bulgaria, from France, from all over Europe, they literally turned their backs and said, we don't want them back, though. We'll just dump them in a land. We'll dump them with the Arabs. Okay, how is that not anti-Semitic? Like, to me, that at its very core, and Europe will never address this, never even look themselves in the mirror and understand your anti-Semitism caused this. It is not because Jews and Muslims can't get together.
Correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm opening my encyclopedia brain here. I remember a story about the U.S. rejecting a ship of Jewish people, right?
Yes. Yeah. And they immediately went to the death camps. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So my brain was right then.
Yes. Whereas Palestine is accepting them. You just can't be a majority. That's it. You can be here. You just can't have your own state here. You can become Palestinian. You cannot take over our
So you
land.
can be Palestinian. You can still practice your religion, and there's no massive call to assimilate into any culture. You can just hang out and live peacefully with us.
We'll give you refuge here. And what ended up happening is they they kicked them out, and they were like, no, what we actually need is a state. And Argentina's not going to work. Uganda's not really it. So let's take Palestine. They're pretty open.
That's essentially what the Pilgrims did too, because
Exactly.
if the Native Americans had let them starve, which they probably should have, to be completely honest with you, I mean, yeah, like, because traditionally in most indigenous cultures, they are very welcoming to outsiders, which actually really lines up with like the Christian religion of the actual tenets of Christ and Jesus Christ, right?
Who was Palestinian? A Palestinian Jew.
Right?
Because they existed. Sorry.
No, but I think, yes, I think we should be having these conversations because I just find it really interesting right now. Now, mind you, my autistic brain sees things differently than most people. I'm really good at pattern recognition. And once I can see something very clearly and see the pattern and see the timeline, I can't look away, and I cannot be persuaded otherwise, because I'm like, right, like, even with my posts on social media or whatever, like, I do a lot of research. If I'm going to say something, I'm going to make sure that I can find a source for it. I'm going to make sure that the quote that I used, that I find the exact source where it came from, so I can direct people back to it and hopefully educate people. That's a large part of what this podcast is about as well. You know, it's about advocacy and activism, community, and I'm finding that a lot of people in the autism neurodiversity space, we have been blowing the horn for a long while, especially whenever it comes to eugenics, which we're going to circle back to that in a bit. But for me, first we start with the trans people, then we start with the autism. And, you know, a little bit before that, or maybe like coinciding with that, people are having to mull about, what are we going to do with these teenagers and these college kids that are just like so adamant about Palestine, because like that's causing problems and we're not quite sure what to do with that. And it wasn't so much that they were interested to see why these kids felt that way. It was just problematic, and it was anti-Semitic. But I find that interesting just in and of itself, right? Because it's like, why can't we criticize as a nation a foreign leader that is just very clearly killing people in mass, which is genocide? Like, we have our own problems with genocide.
And genocide scholars have said that. Their own human rights organization, Bet Salam, has said this is our genocide. And yet American media will not say that. American politicians will not say that. And it just makes me wonder, so if the genocide scholars are saying it, if the NGOs are saying it, who's saying it? Is it going to take for you to be like, oh, gee, Will? Oh, she was.
Well,
this is a genocide.
But coming from a country, right, where we can't even still fully acknowledge what we did to the indigenous population, and we continue to do this shit. So right now we have a problem with ICE in Minnesota that they have abducted Lakota tribe members, and like the Lakota tribe has, you know, barred them from their land, right? And they sent people to a place where they had hung a bunch of Lakota, like the federal government had hung multiple Lakota men. I'm like, the symbolism here for me, and I'm just one person, right? I'm not saying everybody has to agree with me, but I'm saying the facts are there. And so for anybody that looks at life like that, right, where we're like, interesting. It's not hard to piece these pieces together, and they're all brown people.
I think that's so interesting that, yeah.
But you know what I mean? It's just, it's fucking clear as day.
Because I see it from that perspective, but from the other side, like, yeah, so to your point, I see Minnesota, Minneapolis. I see what they're doing, and I hear people talk, oh my gosh, how could we have let it get this far? How could we have done this? And all I see is, this is the war on terror. We did this after 9/11. We signed the Patriot Act. We gave the government the right to snoop through our stuff, to look at our text message, our emails. You know, Edward Snowden came out to tell people, hey, this is what they're doing. And people were like, you know, people who have nothing to hide nothing. So that's, I'm not a terrorist. I'm not a jihadist. It's fine. And the Arabs and the Muslims were screaming from the rooftop going, we aren't terrorists, we aren't jihadists. But you're not listening to us because we're brown and you don't care and it's not you and so whatever. And this is like some weird time of unity and national healing is how a lot of people remember post 9/11, especially young people who, like younger than me, who in these college rooms, they say things and I'm just like, were you alive?
So here's the thing, because I was alive and I was a college student then.
Okay, so what was it? Did you feel this like weird sense of unity? Because like I don't remember feeling unity. I remember feeling scared. I remember my house was scared. And not because we were scared of another, I mean, yes, scared of another terror attack. But my grandma was scared that if they found out that we were Arab or Syrian, that they would hurt us, that they would take us to camps, that they would do something. Because they were. They were going into mosques and infiltrating mosques and sending FBI agents, trying to talk to people and make connections because they assumed there had to be a jihadist terror ring inside this masjid. And they would go onto the streets of Dearborn and pick somebody up and just take you and hold you in a detention facility and just ask you question after question. You'd be like, no, I'm not a terrorist. Yes, my name is Muhammad. Yes, I am a Muslim. No, I'm not. I don't. This isn't, constant having to explain who you are, why you're here, what you're doing. And your family doesn't even know where you've been taken. You are being held in a detention site incommunicado, all because you are living in an Arab majority, because Dearborn has the largest population of Arab Americans in the country, which is why Kamala did not win Michigan and was not going to. But they were doing all of this stuff that we are seeing in Minneapolis in Dearborn. Maybe not the way that they're doing it. It didn't look like a military occupation, because what we're seeing in Minneapolis looks straight out of the West Bank. If you look at Ramallah in the West Bank, that's what you're seeing.
Well, I'll tell you right now, whenever I saw them bringing out their little cyber dogs, I was like, what the hell is this shit? This is like some sci-fi shit from the Terminator, because I am that old.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I remember as a child, now I'm not saying necessarily it was age appropriate, right? But I'm just saying, I remember those lessons. I grew up with people that had a natural caution about the government. Were very Second Amendment people that were like, you know what? But also my family, we've got roots all the way back to the Revolutionary War, farther. But I'm just saying, like, literally, I can be a part of the Daughters of the American Revolution because I can prove it.
Nice.
And I think families like that are a different type of American. We're a different type of people, and we see the world in a different way. Also, combine that with, unconfirmed Indigenous heritage. Family story goes that there's also a traveler section, like a gypsy section. They say gypsy. Who knows? I know there's several sections of that. I've also lived in Ireland, so I know what an Irish traveler looks like. And I have many more people in my family on that side that are redheaded, so it makes me wonder if they're not like Irish travelers. But I'm just saying, I'm a accumulation of peoples that are nomadic, that don't trust people, and for good reason. So being a college student, I was a student at the University of Southern Indiana. I woke up that morning and went out to the front room. Two of my roommates were already up, and they were just looking at the TV, like blank stare on their face. And I was like, what are you guys doing?
That's how I remember I was very young. But that's all I remember is my mom
I was
staring at the TV.
I was just looking at them like, what the hell are you guys doing? Like, A, it's early, like really early. And you guys are like comatose, so what's up? And then I circle the corner, I watch what they're watching, and then I see the second plane hit. And I'm like, what is this? I'm like, are you guys watching a movie? And they're like, no, this is real. And I was like, what? And so then we all sit down and we're watching. And we're seeing the news come through. And it's just unbelievable because you're like, what the fuck just happened? Now, after that, there were a couple kids from my university that went to Ground Zero because they were either pre-med or whatever, and so they went because they felt like that's the thing to do. And they helped dig people out or dig bodies out or what have you. But I'm from that generation that also multiple kids from the Midwest immediately joined the military.
Yes.
Because they felt that was the right thing to do. Some of them were already in the military, and then they pulled them out of classes.
I've heard a lot of people say that was their military origin story.
But a lot of kids that I went to school with that were already in the military and the reserves or whatever, they literally pulled them out of classes. And they were like, right, you're active now. Like, I had people that were in my classes that they pulled out. And then they went. And I never saw them again. I know a lot of people that came back with PTSD and the whole gamut. And then come to find out, they're like, how much of this war was actually what we thought it was?
Because most of the hijackers come from Saudi Arabia. They don't come from Iran, Afghanistan, or Iraq. And yet those are the places that we go to fight. But why?
But I'm just saying, just from a very basic, like, without going full-scale rabbit hole, right? Because I know everybody's got tons of opinions on all that.
Oh, yeah.
But just to say, I come from a generation of people that have seen multitudes of wars, that have a ton of people now that have suffered, that have PTSD, that are now on disability because of their PTSD, that have to live with those memories, and had to go in places of insurgency where now they're seeing that on American streets. And now these same people of my generation that gave their life to this country, for example, are now ringing the bell, and they're like, listen, this is not supposed to be happening. Like,
yeah, it looks like Fallujah out there.
Looks like Fallujah. There's so many ex-military content creators right now that are saying just like that. Exactly.
I love them for saying that because my Arab self from the growing up in the early 2000s, I'm just like, yeah, it is the legacy of slave catching. It is absolutely the legacy of Jim Crow South. But that never went away. It's not like it just went underground for a little while and now it's just resurfacing its ugly head. No, it just took different forms. Yeah. So, in the early 2000s, it wasn't African Americans. They were still dealing with their own thing because we never really stopped picking on marginalized people in this country. Hopefully someday we do. But I am seeing a lot of what I saw in the early 2000s, where just people being picked on, people being taken off the streets, places of worship being violated, nobody cares, schools being violated and nobody cared because it's the Arabs, it's the Muslims, if you're not a terrorist, then this doesn't concern you. And now
what do you have to worry about if you're not doing anything wrong?
Right. And now we're seeing people like Donald Trump who are like, well, if you hold anti-capitalist, anti-Christian, anti-American, anti-traditional views, you are a domestic terrorist. And Arabs are going, yeah, we told you that. The domestic terrorist and the terrorist were very broad, vague legal terms, and that you needed to define those more seriously because there are no guardrails on this right now.
Well, you know what I find really interesting, coming from a people that originally were very skeptical of government involvement, right? And also, I'm not saying these people were like anti-law enforcement, but also kind of like just very firmly pro-Second Amendment, right? I find it really interesting right now that these same people that I was raised by, the lessons that I learned, their alarm bells aren't going off by a paramilitary force within the confines of the United States wearing masks, while there are rumors going around, because we already know that, we send a lot of our law enforcement to be trained in Israel.
Most all of them, yes.
So there's some rumors going around that besides just training, that there may be some IDF officers in ICE, right?
Yes.
So
they're also in your college universities.
But isn't this, right, like
Congress?
Isn't this just, at the very least, a conflict of interest? Because if you serve in Congress, for example, right? I'm going to give you the most white bread sort of explanation that I possibly can, from a very conservative Republican MAGA type person, because I know these type of people.
No.
If it was if you were to spin it the other way, let's play it was Biden, just for the sake of argument. Let's say that let's do Obama. Obama will be more fun. So let's say that Obama decided that he's like, listen, I'm going to put paramilitary in the streets. We're going to start invading red cities. We're going to hit Indianapolis hard. And anybody that gets in our way, I am now going to give these federal officers that, mind you, are supposed to just protect the borders. But I'm going to give them carte blanche to do whatever they want. And then a couple people get shot. One white conservative MAGA mother gets shot in the face. I guarantee you, we would have been full-scale civil war right now. They would have fully assumed their Second Amendment rights, and people would be dead in the streets. There would be rivers of blood. based upon these same people that I was raised by and in community with, who I love and care about. But I'm doing this stuff because of them, because I was raised by people like this. So I'm trying to prove to them, listen, if the shoe were on the other foot, how would you feel? Because I know they would feel differently. And somehow they have accepted this brainwashing and this manipulation from this Messiah that they really believe in. But if it was Obama, they would have told him to go straight to hell in a handbasket.
I love that you bring up Obama for two reasons. One, because yes, and two, he was the deporter in chief. That man deported more people than Trump and Stephen Miller have, and that bothers them to their core. And so I will never stop saying that and reminding people. Obama was the deporter in chief. He deported more people, turned them away at the border, went to jails and said, hey, we have retainers for these people. This is an illegal immigrant. They've come to this country. They've committed a crime. They're about to finish their sentence here. You have them. Will you release them to ICE custody so we can deport them? Yes. Why did you never hear about this? Because it was done the right way. It was done in a more civil way. I think that most Americans, if you said, look, even if Tom Homan, which he did to his tiny credit, tiniest credit, did say, we don't want Minneapolis to look like Fallujah. This is crazy, you guys. But we do expect that Democrat cities give over your criminal immigrants. And I know that people hear that and go, well, how do you know? Well, Obama knew. That, I mean, he was the deporter in chief. How did he do it? Well, the same thing that Tom Homan said, where they're saying, well, I just want to take a retainer and go to the jails and take out the people who have come here illegally, committed a crime, and now we think we should send them back. Okay, most Americans would be like, well, I don't see an issue with
and
that.
95% of Americans would be fine with that.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm fine with that.
Me too.
They clearly did. They committed a crime. We have enough criminals. We don't need to import more criminals in our country. We have enough homegrown criminals.
Nobody is looking to let mass rapists and murderers walk the... No, we don't want them here either, because we don't want them doing this shit to us. But once you are pulling over, Ecuadorian grandma that's 5 foot tall, that doesn't speak English well, and you're throwing her in a fucking gulag...
That just shows you how incompetent Trump and Stephen Miller really fucking are. The fact that you can't even hit Obama's numbers, and to your point, it didn't look like this. I mean, you would have MAGA people, Trump people, normal, sane, rational-minded Americans would have been up in arms and being like, fuck that guy. Are you serious, Obama? This guy? But because he did it in a way that was, no, I'm truly going after the criminals. Going to the jails. All right, you have my support on that. We could do this the right way, and I think that immigration is something that we should be talking about in a more nuanced way. I don't like some of the people who are like, no open borders, just open them up, let everybody in, and I'm just like, I don't think you know who you're letting in.
That's a problem.
I mean, sure. We have been trained to see it as this binary. We're just letting in Latin America. And yes, that is predominantly who's coming in to the ports of entry. I don't want to make it sound like it's not. There are other people coming in to the ports of entry.
Look, I'm going to stop you right there for 1 second, because I lived in the tri-state. Okay. And I'm going to tell you something that fucking irritates me right now. Not only do we have a first lady with an accent, and they're pulling over people with fucking accents that are more brown than her with her spray tan. Not only do the first children fucking that's an immigrant family.
Those are anchor babies we like, apparently.
I mean, goddamn, I'm sorry right now, but I'm going to beat this horse to death because it fucking pisses me off. That man has not only married one immigrant, at least two, right?
Yes.
Had multiple relationships.
I think Tiffany's mom is I think Marla Maples is the only one who's not. Yeah.
But I'm for the sake of our argument, allegedly, there are court documents that he had inappropriate sexual relations with people under the age of 18, and I will leave that there. But how is it that people rationalize a person that they follow that is so, I hate immigrants, but I love the white ones. You want to get all the criminals out, the illegal criminals? But I love the white ones. That's what it is, right? Okay. So Boston is full of illegal Irish immigrants. New York is full of Russian illegal immigrants. we have a massive human trafficking problem.
Yes.
It has gotten worse. We let people back in like the Tates who should have gone through the full tribunal in Romania. I mean, I'm just saying, can we not as a people who have really legitimately been living together in peace from the start, prior to when we were America or the United States of America, we have been a very diverse, multicultural, multilingual society since the dawn of time. Everybody here, when the white people got here, were fucking brown. They just were.
And then the white people imported black people to do all of the work for them, who also spoke different languages. So yes, we have always been multicultural, multilingual.
For even our presidents, even some of the ones that we love, were complicated characters. And we know this. That is the nicest way I can put it. In one hand, you have George Washington, who was the father of the nation, who they essentially wanted to make like the American king, who was sneaking in slaves.
Super problematic.
Yes.
And it is so interesting because you're a history buff, so you know.
I love that shit.
Do you have a favorite president? Because I get asked this as a political science person. I get by my normal friends. I get asked who's your favorite president, and because I'm a political scientist or political science major, but the historian in me is always just like, no, you don't. Because like what you said, yes, because George Washington is a problematic person, because everybody's problematic.
Sure.
So I'm just like, yeah, I mean, and he did great things. They wanted him to be an American king. They looked at it, and in this time, it was so revolutionary and enlightening because there wasn't a leader who was just like, okay, right, so I have served the nation, I've done my duty, and now I'm going to pass the baton of power. And they're like, he's doing that? He's doing that? You do that? We can do that? And they're like, no, you should stay. You should stay and serve another term. He's like, no, I need you guys to learn to move on without me. You need to learn how to do this transfer of power. And if it's not with me, who is willing to acquiesce and do it, it may not happen.
Yeah.
And so, like, that's enough to give me goosebumps
So,
and be powerful. And then you're like, exactly what you said. But he was also an asshole who was trying to, a land surveyor who wanted to move further west. And so
was Benjamin Franklin.
Right. And so, like, the founding fathers were not altruistic in their in their want for a country.
I think the person that did not serve, yet served this country the most, would be Thomas Paine. I love Thomas Paine. I don't think enough Americans know about Thomas Paine, and they should, because Thomas Paine was essentially the one that influenced our revolution.
Rights of Man. He wrote Rights of Man, correct?
Several, yeah.
Okay.
But
I have a few of his books in my office.
So then what happened after America, though, right? He was like, okay, now France is having problems. I'm going to go to France. He actually was jailed in France because he was trying to stop them from guillotining everyone, and was like, look, hey, like, we've taken it too far. And they put him in jail. He almost died in jail. It was Benjamin Franklin that essentially got him out. And then once he landed on the shores of the U.S., had to be attended by a medical physician for quite a while to just not die. Then those same ideals were taken to South America. So this one person essentially sparked a revolution in multiple countries, and then took it upon himself to then go to at least one of said countries to be like, look, I know I said these things and they're right, but you guys are taking it too far. So I kind of feel like people like you and me right now, we are the next generation of the Thomas Paines. We are the warning signal.
So then do you think there's a reason we don't teach about Thomas Paine?
Absolutely.
I was going to say, because I always like to tell people what's said is very important. You should always listen very carefully, listen twice, speak once about what's said. But you should also pay very close attention to what isn't said. Because there's a lot there when they're,
I think
leaving out Thomas Paine. You leave out a lot of lessons about revolution, about history, about America. And so are those lessons left out? Does that serve power? Is that why maybe? I don't know. This is how my brain always works. Why were we not taught this? And who does that, not teaching this, who does that serve?
I think the most revolutionary among us are the ones that are activated, like when they are called to service, right? In some way, shape, or form. When the moment demands it. those among us that do that in the most selfless ways possible, we are the most patriotic and the most revolutionary among us. And they are also the ones that once things start to settle down, then they retreat into a life of solitude or calmness or simplicity because they feel like, I rose to the moment, I did what I was called to do, and now I'm done. And I think essentially that is what America is supposed to be about. That is why Washington handed over the baton, because they split from the British government because of these things, because their desire for freedom and justice, which they say, right, for all we know, that's not exactly true. They wanted to go
Abigail
farther.
Adams is an unsung hero on that.
Yes, but they wanted to go farther with it, but not all of them did because of the southern states, because slavery was so fucking profitable. We know all these things. Yes. No one's saying that it's perfect, right? But I personally believe of the people that really sparked the revolution, the first one, like, start with Thomas Paine, read everything that you possibly can first, and then go from there. And find the politicians, find the government officials that are really doing that stuff, that are really leading with conviction, speaking their heart, doing it in a selfless way. The people that are really rising to the moment right now, these are the people you should be watching, because they will also be the people to serve you in the most genuine ways. These are the people that are called to serve their communities, that are serving their neighbors, like the people in the streets, the protesters or whatever. Pay attention to their bravery. Notice that there is a reason why there are so many women, why there's so many elderly, I shouldn't say elderly women, but so many women of an older age that recognize the fact that they don't have small children right now, that they can make an impact with their age, with their skin color, that they have less to lose. They don't have to worry about childcare. They don't have to worry about losing their jobs right now. Recognize the people that are doing nothing, or the people that are acquiescing. And the people that are doing nothing and that are acquiescing are the people with money. And so that has always been a problem in this country. Yes. That continues to be a problem. That is not a race problem. That is a disparity between the wealthy and then the not wealthy, right?
Yes.
Because let's just be plain here.
Yes.
We're not talking about the people that have $1 million. Like,
I'm not, it's that Chris Rock thing. I'm not talking about rich. I'm talking about wealthy.
Yes.
Oprah's rich. The person who signs her checks is wealthy.
We're talking about the people that nobody knows.
Right. We're not talking about the millionaire who's rich.
Yes.
We're talking about the Simon family worth billions of dollars, or Mark Rowan worth billions of dollars, who most people don't know until recently. But like you said, the people who
they have a vested interest in the poverty of others.
And you go on the internet and you try to find things about some of the members of the Simon family specifically. I was trying to find things, and I just thought, what a privilege it is that your data is not all over the internet.
Right.
That I cannot find that much about Rachel Simon.
Sure.
And like you said, for a reason. There is a reason why you cannot find that much about these people on the internet. It's because they don't really want to be known. They don't want you to see their doings and their dealings and their movements, because when you start to track their movements, you start to see exactly what you said. The only thing that supersedes nationality, ethnicity, race, anything, political ideology, is money. The almighty dollar. And yet somehow people, maybe it's because we're all, rank and file, we're all kind of poor comparatively, that they seem to think, no, this Democrat billionaire, this is my billionaire, and they are for me. And you're like, no, they're for the billionaires. You aren't one of those. You're a poor Democrat. So that rich Democrat has nothing in common with you. He actually has more in common with a rich Republican than he has with you. You actually have more in common with your poor conservative neighbor than you do with that rich Democrat. And yet somehow they look at me like I have 3 heads. And I'm like, no, as soon as your bank account reaches a certain level, as soon as you reach a certain wealth, a certain class, there is racism in that class, right? The wealthy do, they will pick off each other. I'm sure that they are racist in their own rights, and they tribalism in their own rights. But they will coalesce around each other and forget all of that shit the moment the poor start coming and asking for things. And that's where
this is why I hate fucking Bo Bai. I'm just going to give you an
Girl,
example.
yes, let's do it.
I'm just going to give you an example. That motherfucker. You know what? You are the least Hoosier thing I have ever seen, and it makes me fucking sick that so many podcasters are licking his fucking balls right now. Yep. I'm sorry.
No, seriously.
I mean, I know I'm going like hard with it.
They have knee pads and chapstick. They are filleting this man to no end. Every time they see him out in public, they're like, "Can I get a selfie with you?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, is he a character at Disney World?"
Especially the women.
Oh, girl,
Jesus!
I was watching. I'm not going to name names because that's rude. But there was a podcaster I was watching, I was just thinking, does someone need to come and spray bottle? You are getting too hot and bothered by Bo Bai right now. Oh, Bo. Like, oh my God.
But let me just be clear though.
Okay.
I'm not saying like I hate him as a person.
No, I don't know him as a person.
I don't know him either. But I think that's part of the problem, right? Like, people are poor right now in Indiana. If you don't know what it's like to eat a fried bologna sandwich, if you don't know what it's like to eat hot dogs in your macaroni, if you don't know what it's like to eat peanut butter jelly and ramen noodles on the daily, you are not a fucking Hoosier. I am sorry.
Not only does he not know what those things are, shit on a shingle, he'd look at you and be like, the what?
Yeah, what is that?
I mean, not only that, but I will just point you to one specific example. Back when they were trying to take away SNAP, do you remember when they were trying to defund SNAP and take away food for needy families? Bo Bai is on TikTok at this time, sitting in the Dairy Queen, talking about his favorite ice cream order. That's what Bo Bai thought people wanted to know at this time, this moment. And you know how we were talking about earlier? Optics, that was a choice. You chose to go sit in a Dairy Queen and just sit here and eat your little blizzard and be like, I like an Oreo blizzard. And tone deaf, while Blythe Potter, at the same time, these two people who are fighting for the same, vying for the same seat, at the same time, you have Blythe Potter over here who is talking to you about resources, telling you where you can go to food pantries, telling you where you can go to get what you need, and giving you updates on where we're at with SNAP, what's going to happen, what this is going to look like, just trying to educate the people. And I just thought, you are not even in this job yet. You don't even have the role yet, and people are telling you they're counting you out before you have even given it a fighting chance. And you're out here going, yeah, I don't care. My point and the reason I'm doing this is to care for Hoosiers and take care of Hoosiers. And so whether I'm elected or not, I'm going to start right now today. I am going to audition for the job that I want. And Bo Bai's like, oh, geez, people are going to lose their food? Huh. I'm at the Dairy Queen and I've got a DQ Blizzard and it's tasty. And you're just like, the juxtaposition of those two people and how you can still sit there and be like, Bo, you really care about Hoosiers. You're just in it because you love Hoosiers. It's not just them, though. And I'll tell you what, like, I would hold Blythe's feet to the fire. Absolutely.
So hot. But I'm like that with everybody. And, you know, this is what I love about Hoosiers. They're counting a lot of people out right now because I grew up in a place where I was told, like, very often, you don't vote for the party, you vote for the person.
Yep.
And I personally believe, you know, because Hoosiers are those type of people, right? Where you're not supposed to talk about politics, you're not supposed to talk about religion, you're supposed to be kind of nice in public or whatever. But I'll tell you what, that doesn't mean they're stupid. That doesn't mean they're not listening. And unless you're really, really so, like, exorbitantly rich, that
which most Hoosiers aren't.
I mean, I literally can prove on receipts, just coffee, right? Like the same generic, like super value, big coffee tub at the cheapest coffee at Walmart, right?
Yes.
Was $9 like 2 years ago. It's now $19.
Yeah.
I've seen so many older Hoosiers in Walmart because let's face it, you know, if you're from a rural community, you probably have to drive at least 20 to 30 miles to get to a Walmart, and that's about Walmart or Dollar General, and those are your choices. Yeah. Maybe you're lucky enough to have a Dollar General in your town. But the price of just normal things has shot through the roof. And I see so many older people right now. They'll pick something up in the store, and then they'll kind of look at it, and then they put it back. And I've seen more and more older people in the store with like 4 or 5 items in their cart.
And that's like $100 right there.
And I've seen more and more women, because normally, let's face it, like normally the women are the ones doing the shopping.
Yeah.
Like, that's no knock to guys. Like, it could be the
No,
guys
I know.
sometimes, whatever, but like,
But it's true. I do predominantly see
Yeah,
them in the grocery
predominantly.
store. I am the person who grocery shops for this house.
sure. So you see a lady with like a couple kids in the cart.
Yep.
And she's also doing the same thing. And
Yep.
the cart is full of generic brands. It's not name brand stuff. And the carts are just getting, like, not the physical size of the cart, but the items in the cart are getting smaller. And the quantity is being less. And you see people, like, just very kind of sad and concerned faces. And you can just see it in the people. And
Yeah, Hoosiers are tired of taking it on the chin.
yeah. Yeah. But that doesn't mean that we're not a strong people. And this goes across the aisle. The aisle.
We are some resilient motherfuckers out here in
I
Indiana.
really feel like more often than not, we still are the cup of sugar sort of people.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to shut your door to someone. Like, if you have something to share, you're going to share it with them. But because of the resiliency, because of the community spirit, we need to find people that resemble us. And so this is why I don't like people like Bobai that take big money from, billionaires who don't have a vested interest in their people, are more interested in how cheap the labor can be. And I'm warning you now, I've said this to multiple people, especially for the rural zones. We're letting so many rich people come into this area, whether they were here or not to start with. If we continue to do nothing, and we just let these politicians just keep taking this money who couldn't give a shit about what happens to Indiana, especially the rural communities. This goes for all levels of politician and, like all branches. This state is about 63% farmland right now.
Farmers are taking it
Yes.
so hard right now.
Well, my dad's a farmer, and I come from like multi-generations of
So
farmers.
you know better than I know.
Yeah. But I will tell you this, if we do nothing and we just let these people continue down the path they're going, 100% of the farmland will be covered with either data centers or solar farms, because they don't give a shit about these people. I think you should always follow the money, and I think the money tells you everything.
Yep.
So if someone is taking money from someone that has a vested interest in charter schools, well, you bet your ass those people are going to expect that they get something back for their money.
Yes.
Whatever that looks like.
Yes, they are making an investment. It's
Of course.
it's not a donation.
So
and
this
that's
is why we have to
what-
get money out of politics.
Yes, and that is what I think that normal people fundamentally misunderstand, is that when you or I give $50 or even $500,
Sure.
I'm not trying to not
Hell, even $5,000. If you have the
Right.
money to spend, and that's what you want to do with it, fine.
if that, and for us, that we think that is not corrupting money, because we're just like, so Blythe, if you really liked Blythe and you had extra $500 and you just wanted to give her
Sure,
$500, that is a donation. I don't think that you think that you're getting anything for that. I don't think she thinks she's giving you anything for that $500, except for thanks for your support. But when Mark Rowan comes to town and gives you and he's from New York, when he gives you $25,000 from the comfort of his home in New York, he is not doing that because he is looking at the TV and watching Indiana Week in Review or John Schwannis on Indiana Lawmakers and going, man, those Hoosiers, they are just some hardworking people. And they need someone like Bo Bai. No, he's looking at his ledger and he is looking for an investment he can make. And he looks to his employee's son, who is about to try to run for the Secretary of State in Indiana, and goes, well, I have this data center venture. Indiana's having a data center boom. They want to be the crossroads of the AI crossroads of the Midwest, or however they try to sell that shit to us,
Right.
leaning in on our crossroads history and trying to hit that nerve in Hoosiers to be like, yes, I want to be the crossroads of America again.
Because we always want to be first.
Because we always, right. And I get that. And I get that want to be great again. Because the Hoosiers state is great and Hoosiers are great. But that's not how we're going to do it. And giving away land and trying, like you said, we're going to lose farmers to data centers.
But what are the communities getting out of it?
Nothing. We are getting nothing out of it. We don't get, they get tax abatements. Those data centers, they get tax abatements for sometimes 50 years. The lower end is usually 10, 20 years. The high end is usually 50 fucking years, they don't have to pay property taxes. They don't have to pay sales taxes. They're not paying taxes over there.
And meanwhile, they're pumping all that dirty water back in.
They're pumping dirty water back in. They're pumping it into the soil. They're using methane generators that are polluting our air. Indiana already has some of the dirtiest air, soil, and water.
Yep.
We already don't take care of it. We brought the EPA here to talk about deregulation, and all Hoosiers heard was, we're gonna pollute your shit more because we actually don't care about you.
With a bunch of people that actually like to hunt and fish that would care about those things.
They do care. Exactly what you're saying. They do care. And a lot of my Republican friends and I are actually building a coalition and in agreement on the AI data centers.
Of course.
And on especially
because
Eagle Creek.
Hoosiers first.
They want to go fishing and they're like, but I love Eagle Creek. And I talk to a lot of my, conservative friends and they're just like, I love Eagle Creek. I will fucking die for that. I'm not a tree hugger. I'll chain myself to a tree. I'll chain myself to that bear statue. You take it from me. And I'm just like,
You're like, welcome to the cause.
Welcome. I never thought we'd get you on. I love it. This is so great. And they're just like, I didn't think you would agree with me. And I'm like, well, I'm not a fisher. I don't fish. I'm not a fisherman, but I love that. Did you love that? I like to look at the water. I like to be at Eagle Creek. I like to look at the animals. I love it there.
The thing of it is, though, right?
I don't want to see it polluted.
For the people that actually live here.
Yep.
For the people that are actually going to stay. For the people that, they have families that are going to stay here. All of us, why wouldn't we care about our air, our soil, our water? Like, these are things that are going to affect all of our families.
Yes.
I don't think it's a coincidence that we're not putting solar panels on top of the buildings in Indianapolis because they think it's an eyesore.
And I think that is crazy. And I think it is crazy that a lot of HOAs, I live in an HOA. My HOA they're sticklers about the solar panels. They don't like them. They're an eyesore, which you said.
You're not the first one that's told me that.
I fight them tooth and nail. I've even tried to run for the board because I thought, you know what? I don't like you guys. I don't like what you stand for. And I'm going to come change it. And I found out that is not a democratic system. You don't actually run for HOA board. If you didn't know, they hand select you. You can run. You do run elections. But when I was asking, how do you run? I want to know more. I want to get on the ballot. Please tell me your process. And they were the M management group that actually is the management group for the HOA, because the HOA is not, it's your neighbors. They're not really making the rules, right? It's a management group that does that.
Right.
So they reached out to me and were like, we heard you're interested in being in the HOA. We would just want to see if your values align with ours. So we'll have you go to a meeting, talk to the current members, and we'll see if your values align. And I just responded with, what do you mean my values align? What does that mean? She said, well, that you're good with the covenants, that you understand your role, that you understand that we would be bringing you in to continue this. And I was just like, I didn't think that. I thought that I was coming in to help fix my neighborhood, the problems, like the not letting us have sheds in our yards, because that's bullshit. My husband's a mechanic, and so he doesn't want lawn stuff and gardening stuff in his garage. That's his garage. I need a shed. And so they're like, no sheds, no solar panels. Okay, well, I want to be energy independent. I don't like AES. I want to be energy independent. If something happens and they put a bunch of data centers around me and we start getting rolling brownouts, that's problematic. I have children, so I want to have, stored up energy enough to be able to have something to fall back on. And I don't think that it's crazy to ask that I be able to use my roof as a way to do that. And the HOA is just like, no, you don't need that. You don't need to do that. And to your point, I don't think it's fair to ask farmers to do that if they don't want to do that. If you want to do that, if that's your venture, you want to put solar farm, that's fine. You could do that. But to your point, I think you should stick it on top of the roofs.
I'm going to stop you there, though, because what's happening in rural communities, which they're pissed about, is you get the richest farmers that have the most land that then do some sort of a backdoor deal with these companies that nobody even knows about, that the public's not voting on, and then before you know it, boom, here's this thing that just happened.
Are those rich farmers from the community?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I know 2 of them.
Oh, I was hoping you were going to tell me it was like a California person, like a Scott Bessent kind of person. I'm a soybean farmer. And you're like, man, you ain't seen a field ever in your life.
No. But the thing is, right? And I'm not really like shaming these people. I think, yes, like there's that argument to be made that it's their land and they can do what they want with it. Okay. All right. But then what happens if everyone does that? Like, how much communal responsibility do we have to our neighbors, right? If I don't know, like, I'm not certain that I have the answer to that, because I am one of those people that's like, yeah, like, people should have their rights and all that sort of thing. The backdoor dealings and all that stuff going around, not good. I don't think these rural communities are actually getting enough education. Like, nobody's asking them anything, which they hate. Everybody's treating them like they're stupid. So they're not even really trying. Like, they might have a meeting here or there. They don't necessarily like advertise it. In my area right now, like, the county commissioners board, and like, I'm from Fountain County, so the Fountain County board, like, they are putting out meetings constantly now. Like, everybody now is on like a text chain about like, here's the next meeting. Here's the next meeting. Like, I've never seen so many meetings in my life, but it is after all of that happened.
Yeah.
It's after they already did the thing. And so now people are invested because they're like, what? Like, there's this huge solar farm going in, and like, that's going to be my view for until I die. So all of these farms that now butt up against these farms that the solar farms went into, they're like, now I'm talking a more Republican standard, right? Because the people from my area are predominantly Republican. The things that I'm hearing from them is like, what's going to happen to the wildlife? What's going to happen to the water? What happens if one of these things breaks? Like, what's in that thing that's going to lick into the soil?
Because like 10, 15 years ago, I don't know, I just feel like I wouldn't have heard Republicans talk about conservation in this way that I'm seeing them
I don't
talk
necessarily
about now.
think that they think it's conservation per se.
Okay.
I don't know necessarily that they would use that term,
Probably not.
but they acknowledge that.
But we are in the same fight for rights, for
Yes.
land and water.
They
and
they
air and-
acknowledge that.
Right.
How is this new thing that we don't have enough information on yet going to like affect the longevity of the soil, the water, the air, the wildlife, my kids, my
And they're taking-
local well?
The government, the local and state governments are taking a very tech bro approach to it. They are just moving fast and breaking things. And to
Well,
your
they're
point-
not asking anybody, right? So
No,
also,
they're not. They're moving fast.
this whole like serve the community thing is breaking these rural communities, because they're like, you know, like, I've known you my whole life and I thought you were a good dude or a good chick or whatever, and then you let this happen? Like, and why are you going behind our backs and doing it? So I think right now there's a lot of people in these rural areas that are really conflicted, because, you know, these people that are on their city councils and stuff like that, like, sometimes these are people that they have known for generations,
Yeah.
that like they grew up in the community, and, you know, they not only know that person, they know all their cousins, the grandparents, whatever. And so they're having a hard time with this like betrayal. And they're like, but we thought you were for us. Like, why wouldn't you talk to us about this?
I think that is so important that you say that, because I hear a lot of Democrats in the city and in suburbia asking specifically, you know, like, why do rural Hoosiers vote for these assholes that then turn around and betray you? Why are you not? And to your point, they kind of do. Like, why are you not smart enough to see that this man is a con man and he doesn't care about you? And I think that even I am as smart as I am, as much as I care about people, I'm still in suburbia. So like, I do sometimes forget. My husband is not. He's from, you know, Clayton area. So he is more used to the like small, like you said, rural. So he very much is like, well, yeah, I knew that guy because my granddad went to school with that guy. My great grandpa, like, we did generations. Everybody knows everybody.
Think about it like this.
Like, that must be it.
Wouldn't you trust someone
Yes.
that you have known your entire life,
Yes, or
to
that like
do the
their
right
parent
thing?
went to school with my parent. Their parents went to school together. I know Johnny. I
Why
played
wouldn't they
baseball
do the
with him.
right thing because
Right.
they're vested in the community?
Exactly. And I think I think that even though what you said is so small, I think it's so important and worth just like really highlighting one more time, just because I do think that especially Democrats, people in the city and in the suburbs just kind of think these rural communities, what is wrong with them? Why do people in like Clayton or Martinsville or even further out, why do you guys not see that these representatives do not care about you and don't have your interests at heart. And it's exactly what you just said, because I grew up with you. Why would I think that? I mean, I
trust them.
You're a nice person. I know you. So of course you would not do me wrong. You're from this community. You would not hurt this community. This is we're your family, essentially. Why would you hurt your family?
Yeah.
Right. Because we're sending you to the state house to represent Seymour or represent Stylesville or represent Hazelwood or wherever, we're sending you there to represent you. We're family. We're from this, Martinsville family. Why are you doing this to hurt this community? And it's because it's the money. Follow the money.
You know what I find really interesting right now, which, I'm really beating my drum about. This really pisses me off. These people are just people. They're just men.
Yep.
And something has happened recently where they feel that they're above. And they don't feel that they should be held to account. And they don't feel that they should have to answer for things. And if someone calls them out, be it in public, in person, or in social media, they'll just avoid it like it never happened. And I see a correlation between Bobai. I know I keep bringing him up. Sorry, but as an example, it doesn't have to just be him, right? But there's this thing going on where now it's like we have the American aristocracy, which is much like the French aristocracy,
yes.
Which is like, we are above you. Therefore, we don't have to acknowledge anything that you say because we are smarter than you and we are acting in your best interest and we are endowed by God, by our Creator, and you have no right to question us and we will not even entertain answering your question.
Yes.
And that right now is pissing Hoosiers off because they're like, hold on, buddy. Like we put on our pants the same way, one leg at a time or however you jump into your pants. But God damn it, last time I checked, you're not Jesus Christ.
And we actually have a lot of political families just in Indiana. I mean, not just Bobai. Andre Carson's seat, it was his grandma's seat.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes.
Okay.
Not that George Hornetto is better. In fact, I am not even certain where I stand. Not the 7th district isn't my district.
Well, I've heard some things going on with Hornetto right now. I mean, I can't follow everything because I'm just one person, but
he is a pro-Israel candidate. I need to do more research into his donor history because the AIPAC donors, it's not AIPAC directly that donates to people because they know now that they are something that young people are looking out for, going, oh, are you AIPAC funded? Because if so, I'm not interested in that. Much like Bobai. He is actually AIPAC funded. If you asked him, are you AIPAC funded? He could legitimately answer no.
Right.
Because technically, AIPAC will not show up on his receipts.
Right.
What will show up, though, is Deborah Simon, who is the number 2. She is in the top 10 AIPAC donors. If you Google AIPAC tracker donors, it will take you to a list of all of the donors. Deborah Simon is one of the top. All of her siblings and her dad, uncle, the entire Simon family donates to AIPAC. They donate to J Street. They donate to the Mutual Defense for Israel. There are so many PACs that are pro-Israel PACs. And Mark Rowan is also one of the top donors to AIPAC. So these candidates are able to legitimately say, I am not AIPAC funded, while also taking $25,000, $50,000, $75,000 from donors who are AIPAC donors. George Hornetto's probably got some AIPAC donors. He's worked closely with Rachel Simon.
Okay.
So I know for a fact that there is something there I need to dig more into. The thing that I noticed that made me go, you are pro-Israel. There is no other way to say that. And I'll come back to that. Is that I looked at his Middle East policy on his website, and all he does is speak about Israel. As if that is the only country in the Middle East. If you're going to Congress and you're talking about, you can have an approach to the Middle East, but I would assume that you would speak about at least one other country. Like there's Syria, there's Jordan, there's Lebanon, there's, a lot of countries, Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan.
Yeah, but most people
Kuwait,
don't even
Saudi
know
Arabia.
how many countries are in that zone, right?
Yeah, and it depends on which you're like, because
Sure.
the Middle East is like not really, it's a colonizer's term, because, like Middle East being, Britain being the center. So that would be the Middle East. Actually, a lot of people call it SWANA region, the Southwest Asia, North Africa region, because the Morocco and Libya and Egypt also have a little Arab in them because the Ottoman Empire came down to Africa. So there, even though Egypt isn't the Middle East, Morocco isn't the Middle East, same. Not same, but same. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you're trying to say. Yeah.
So I just thought that was so interesting that like his entire approach is and I'm not asking him to be anti-Israel. I'm just asking you to acknowledge there are other countries in the middle. What's your Syria policy?
Yeah, look, what's your stance on that?
What's your approach towards anything else other than an entire page, which is now defunct? If you wanted to do, you would have to go to the Wayback Machine and type in georgehornetto.com or whatever his address is / Middle East policy.
Okay.
In order to see it, because he has taken it down, and I don't.
Oh, that's suspicious.
I don't know if it's because of me, because he has blocked me on all social media because I will not stop banging the drum and putting his Middle East policy up there and going, "You are pro-Israel. Stop saying you're not." And he's like, "I am not." I'm like, "Yes, you literally are. Here are all your policies about how you are going to only help this one country in the Middle East. It is your right. This is the thing you are going to Congress pretty much to do." And once you are questioned on that and pushed on that, you just take the page down immediately. You just take the whole thing down. You don't amend it and add in other countries. And then you look at the thing that I find interesting is the reason I think it's so weird that you are pro-Israel is just because we would think that it's strange if you were like, well, I'm just so pro-France. I actually served in the French military and now I'm a congressperson. We'd be like, well, that's a conflict of interest. You actually have to register under FARA as a foreign agent to say that you're lobbying on behalf of a foreign country. You have to do that for every country on this earth except for Israel.
Interesting.
They don't have to register.
That is really
and Tucker
interesting.
Carlson asked that of Ted Cruz and was like, well, could we just make the people register? Could you have lobbies register? I mean, why is it that we have this one country that we treat differently than every other country on earth? We can't just treat them the same as every other country? Well, that's anti-Semitic, Tucker. You're Carlson. And you're like, well, yeah, I mean, Tucker Carlson has some very abhorrent views on a lot of things. Don't like the dude at all. But answer the question, Ted. Like that's a good question. Why do we allow? And there is a sitting member of Congress. I can't remember his name. I believe he's in Florida.
He is in Florida.
Member of Congress who served for the IDF. He went and voluntarily served for the Israeli Defense Forces, and walked around after October 7th in an IDF uniform with IDF dog tags.
Yeah, I remember seeing that.
If I looked at you and said, "So I'm Syrian. I'm going to start a Syria pack, and we are going to be America's Syria pack." Ass pack. So now I'm going to lobby on behalf of Syria, and I'm going to go serve in the Syrian Defense Forces, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to serve as the most pro-Syrian congressperson ever. You'd be like, so this is America. You can't do that.
They'd throw your ass in Guantanamo
They'd
Bay.
throw my ass so fast in Guantanamo. And yet, on that podcast, Ted Cruz told Tucker Carlson, my mission and why I was sent to Congress is to be the most pro-Israel congressperson.
Interesting.
And we don't, as Americans, look at that and go, I don't give a fuck what side of the aisle you're on. Because there are plenty, Cory Booker. There are so many Democrats who take AIPAC money.
Yeah, and they're so quiet right now.
For Israel. And you're just like, so why do we allow this? Why do we allow this one country to have such special privileges? We allow them to not register as a foreign agent. We allow them to serve in our Congress. We have literally there's a fantastic book called The Israel Lobby by John Mearsheimer. He is a political scientist. It started as a paper, a scholarly article that him and a co-professor wrote together. It's fantastic. Then they turned it into a book. And I'm trying to listen to the audio version because I'm just so many books for school.
Oh, I understand that.
Like an 18-hour audiobook. So
ooh, you'll have to send it to me.
It is a slog to get through for sure. It's a little dense, but oh my God, it's one I can already tell. It's one of those books that you just like. I'm going to have to keep coming back to the end. There's so much information that I think Americans do not understand about. You think that you know how politics works in America? You
have no idea.
Below the surface, there is a government that occupies our government. And I know that's people are going to be like, oh, occupy, that's wow. There is a time, and it's still true, where AIPAC was so open and so brazen, and Mearsheimer talks about it in his book, where there is a running joke with them that they literally have bought 90%, 96% at this point of Congress. They are so embedded in Congress that all they have to do is just make one phone call and they could have all of Congress on their side with any issue.
Yeah, that's shocking.
And I feel like if Americans understood that there is an entire industry, I mean, because like if you go to look at Jim Banks on Open Secrets, one of his top industries, among agriculture, utilities, what have you, is pro-Israel. And we put this as an industry that we have on all of these open secrets, on all of our members of Congress. You can see clear as day, pro-Israel industry. We don't have this for Syria. We don't have this for Iran. We don't have this for France. I mean, we're really good friends with we used to be, with our Canadian brothers and sisters, right? And I know they don't like us right now, but I hope they know that we still like you.
No, I don't think it's that, right? Like, I do think it's important to say, right, we're talking about governments, not people.
Yes, governments, not people, and not religions either.
Yes.
Religions are separate from their governments, just like Iran.
Yeah,
is
governments
separate from
have
Islam.
vested interests in things.
Yes.
And I think at least we deserve to give the American people the facts, right?
Yes.
Like, for example, because I also wasn't aware, like, were you aware how much money your state gives to Israel? Just your state, not even your government. Were you aware that the Israelis had universal health care? I think people would be like, what? What do you mean? Like, how is it that people are having to struggle in Indiana, yet a portion of our money from our tax dollars is going to support universal health care in another country? And I don't think, like, to be fair, right? It doesn't matter whether it is Israel or Russia or Egypt or Canada or whatever. It's just the fact that things are in play right now that the American public doesn't even know. How do you take money from a people and you don't even tell them what it's about, what it's for, and then on top of it, you ask them to sacrifice to give another people in another country something that you can't have.
Something that we aren't talking about right now in the media, and purposefully so, because American media is controlled by the very same people who have a vested interest in Israel being our satellite.
And like I said, I just want to say it again. I would say the same damn thing if it was Russia. I'm
Yes,
also not a
absolutely.
fucking fan of Putin and his stealing of children right now.
Absolutely.
As an example.
And that, again, the governments have nothing to do with the religions and would never conflate ancient, beautiful religions to fallible, man-made governments, right? So
Let's take a break. We'll take a break and we'll come back to it.
We are at a pivotal point in American history. We do not have the luxury to remain silent. Programs are disappearing every day. We hope that this podcast raises awareness and sparks a sense of advocacy in you. We all can make a difference. The important thing is to start. See you next time.